Hello there, friends. It is Jimmie Maverick coming at you with the Fantasy Frenzy podcast, and with me on the phone is the one, the only Swami Rob. Swami, how you doing?
Hey, from henceforth, I'm referred to as Mr. 14th place.
Mr. 14th place. That's right. You are currently rocking it in the NFL Playoff Challenge. You've scored 581 points so far, and now you are heading into the Super Bowl week, which of course is in 2 weeks. But what players do you have at quad points for that challenge?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. Mostert, I did not have the wild card weekend, so he's only on triple, right?
Right. He'll be on triple.
Okay, and I also had Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, who will be on triple, right?
Well, I think you started them every week, haven't you? You started them from
I have
one, so they'll be a quad point. So those will be your quad point.
Okay, great. All right, I got those two guys. That's it, though, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I have Mostert and Kittle as quad points, and then I've got like Tyreek Hill at triple points. But Mahomes, he'll be at double points for me.
Yeah, me too.
And but I am currently sitting at a rockin' 80th place. But here's the thing, man. I had Mostert at triple points this past week, so he scored me 140 points. His performance literally doubled my total points from the first 2 weeks that I had scored. So that was a bit of a relief. I jumped up about 100 places from where I was, because I was in like 180th place after the first 2 weeks. So that's a fast move up. And, let's see if he does it again, man. I mean, if he does, I got him at quad points. He'll get me like 160, 180 points if he can do another one of those 200-yard, 4-touchdown deals, which is totally going to happen, right?
Didn't even occur to me while I was watching the game until he scored his fourth touchdown. I was real tired on Sunday, and I was just going to sit there watching the game. And when he scored his fourth touchdown, I said, if I'm not mistaken, that's like his fourth touchdown. And they said that, and then I jumped on the site and checked my points, and I was like, boom, baby, okay, now we're in business. Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, Kittle, who I also had at triple points last week, he got me like 3 points. So,
he didn't do a whole lot.
I've been like, like the book, Where's Waldo? It's like, where's Kittle? He has been completely uninvolved in the game plan, although he's just doing run blocking. That's what he's doing, with Jusiak or the fullback, man. Those guys are just plowing down defensive backs, but still, throw him the ball. Come on, it's Kittle.
Well, look, there's a couple of variables here that I'm sure plenty of people have thought about. But the chances of Mostert doing that again this week, it's not likely. But it's not just because it's not likely. I think there's reasons. One of them is I thought Kansas City's D did a fairly good job on shutting Derrick Henry down. And I also thought that Tevin Coleman's injury, they're saying he's going to be available. But it's a dislocated shoulder, so how effective he is, I don't know. Now, San Francisco's running game, you got those three guys, so they can kind of change. They get a change of pace guy just about every now and then, and Kyle Shanahan kind of likes to interchange them. But without Tevin Coleman out there, I think that increases the likelihood of Mostert being bottled up a little bit. So
yeah, but what's probably going to happen is they're probably going to put Breida in, and Breida will get like 200 yards.
Yeah, Breida will blow up, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So here we go. So the Super Bowl's set, right? We got the Chiefs versus the Niners. Who are you picking to win the big game? And right now the line is 2, right? Isn't it 2 points for -2 for Kansas City, I do believe.
Yeah. Yeah, but depending on what book you check, it's being called a pick 'em at a few. You know what, man? I'm gonna go Kansas City because I think Kansas City's defense has improved. Not vastly, but enough that they're no longer a joke. And it just kind of feels to me like Kansas City, it's just this notion that they're due. I mean, this is their first appearance there in 50 years. Patrick Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes will spot you a 52-point lead, and that lead still isn't safe. They can't get you, man.
Right. That's true. I mean, that's true. Although how many times in the Super Bowl have we seen a high-flying, high-scoring offense go in and just get completely shut down? I mean, I'm thinking the Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton. I'm thinking the first time Peyton went with the Denver Broncos in 2013. And even the Rams last year, man, these high-flying offenses that go in and all of a sudden they face a really strong defense and it just completely shuts them down and they get blown out.
Oh, no doubt about it. You can go further back in history, and where I remember the greatest show on turf did win the game. But when they played the Titans, Kurt Warner's first year, that offense was prolific, and that actually was a fairly low-scoring affair. And I don't even think the Patriots, when Tom Brady won his first, their defense actually put the clamps on the greatest show on turf too. So, yeah, there's historical precedent for what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, so I am actually taking the Niners. I'm feeling real confident because both my predictions came true this weekend. So I was very happy with that as far as who makes the Super Bowl. And as far as the four possible combinations of Super Bowl, this is a fairly intriguing matchup. So I'm real excited to see what happens here. But I got to give the edge to the Niners with that defense and that running game, man. I think they're going to.
Yeah.
I think that's the game plan you need to have to beat. To even have a chance to beat the Chiefs, but
I can't argue with the thing you're saying there. I can't argue with the thing you're saying. I think personally that, and you know what, man, my first Super Bowl memory as a kid, when I was old enough to kind of understand the game and watch the whole game, was Super Bowl 11 when the Raiders and the Vikings played. Kenny Stabler was the quarterback for the Raiders back then, and so I've seen every one of them since then. And I think on paper, going into this Super Bowl, this has potential to be one of the greatest Super Bowl games ever played. I think this game is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens, man. And Mahomes is so great. And you think about this, man. Mahomes had a down year. I mean, he declined. His stats declined by about 30% from last year, from what he did last year when he had that tremendous 5,000-yard, 50-touchdown season. But he was a very much a down year for fantasy. If you took him in fantasy, chances are your team didn't do very good because you had to spend such an early pick to get him. But still, the dude makes the Super Bowl, and it's like he's so good. I mean, are the Chiefs going to be the new New England, where they are just in the championship game every year? You got to go through Kansas City in order to make it to the championship game if you're in the AFC.
I don't know if I'd go that far yet. I mean, I think Mahomes is going to be a mainstay in the league for a long time. There was a time before this season's drafts for fantasy where I thought, all right, I'm in 3 leagues, and one of those leagues, just because I do like to get a good quarterback in the first round if I can. I've done it a bunch and done well with that strategy a few times. I thought, well, Mahomes is going to be my number 1 pick. I'm going for it. Now, he didn't fall to me in time, so I didn't end up doing it. So that ended up working out for me, because if I'd have made that decision, that wouldn't have paid off for me very well.
Right. Especially with that injury he had, and he missed a few games and everything.
Right.
But for next year, when you're looking at, I'm looking at the early rankings for next year's fantasy drafts, and you've got Lamar Jackson going probably in the late 2nd round, and you got Mahomes going probably early 3rd round in most drafts, and for me, I'm always looking for value in the position, and you just look every year. There's so many examples of players like Ryan Tannehill, a guy you could pick up for free. I mean, you didn't even need to draft him, man. He was just available on the waiver wires, and he became the starter in week 7. You could just pick him up off the waivers and start him the rest of the season. He was great, But for me, like Lamar Jackson, I took him in like the 9th round in most of my drafts, 8th or 9th round. And paid off huge, for me week after week. But I'm not sure I can spend that early pick on what they might do next year, which I think will probably be a down year for Lamar Jackson, especially. He's one of my regression candidates for next season, and that's next week. That's the what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a list of my top regression candidates and my top reversion candidates, which are candidates that underperformed in 2019 that should be much, much better in 2020. So
I remember when I was drafting
when there's no football. So,
well, when I was drafting my team that ended up coming in 2nd in the league this year, I was really pissed I didn't win. But I think I waited to get a quarterback until probably the 5th round, if memory serves, and Russell Wilson was sitting there, and so I grabbed him, and I thought, all right, it's not the best, not the worst. He's all right, and up until the last couple weeks of the season, that was the best thing I did all year.
Right.
I had no idea he was going to get me those kind of numbers. I was just kind of approaching it of, yeah, all right, he'll do. Maybe somebody else will pop up, and look what he did. So that ended up working out. And again, 4th or 5th round, if I'm not mistaken. And that's value like I can't even begin to explain.
Right. And that's the key, man. When it comes to the fantasy draft, man, it's value. You got to get good value players. And so I always like to be like the last person in my league to grab a quarterback because there's so many good ones. There's probably 17 or 18 quarterbacks that on any given week can be a QB1. And so there's always plenty available on the waiver wire or late in drafts. Dak Prescott's another example. Another guy, he was probably the 14th or 15th quarterback selected. The guy was a QB1 for almost the entire season. He was great, and again, great value. So that's what I always look for in those kind of players.
Well, another guy like that for me, not necessarily a quarterback, but another guy I got late, another 5th or 6th round guy was Nick Chubb, who did great for me this year with a few exceptions.
I can't believe you got him that late. That's a steal.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was still sitting there, and I had him last year, and I thought, well, what's the chances of him doing that again this year? Well, hell with it. There's nobody better. I'll take him. I'll make my running back 2. And he quickly turned into my running back 1 in that league within a couple weeks. And
Same thing happened with me with Derrick Henry. I picked up Derrick Henry in the 7th round because he was injured preseason. He had that injury designation, and I was in a PPR league. He just got completely ignored. I came to my 7th round pick. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's still sitting on the board. I picked him up. He was fantastic, right? He was great. So, all right. Well, so let's talk about the NFL playoff challenge. So there's obviously the Super Bowl's left to go, quad points for people that started the same player all 4 weeks. And we've got 3 people at the top. We got Baitanga, we got Doctor 40s and Ref 1, all with 691 points. So it's going to be very close. Certainly these guys have the advantage because they picked a lot of Kansas City players and they're all at quad points for those Kansas City players. But like I said, man, they're facing, we've seen this whole thing before, top-ranked offense against a top-ranked defense. Go into the Super Bowl, who wins? The defense usually wins that battle. And so they could stumble in the Super Bowl, and people that maybe have Mostert, that have Kittle, that have some of the key 49ers players might be able to come in and steal a victory from one of these guys. But they certainly seem to have the upper hand right now. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. Well, congratulations. Well played. That's all you can say at this point.
Yeah. And hopefully we don't end up with a 3-way tie because that would be lame to give each of them a $33 Amazon gift certificate. That doesn't make anybody happy.
Yeah, no, at that point, you got to have a tiebreaker. You got to have a tiebreaker. Make them put together a Pro Bowl fantasy challenge and make them do that. The only problem is the Pro Bowl is this weekend, so that's not going to work. Never mind.
That's not going to work, man. I think what I might do is I might send them a message and say, predict the score, predict how many points Kansas City scores. Whoever gets closest would break that tie. But I'll figure it out. I'll get something to them.
How about you just make them go overtime, and they have to put together an XFL fantasy team and let the season play out, and whoever wins that wins it.
There you go. Just draw this sucker out for the next, 4 or 5 months for an Amazon gift card. Now I'm not going to do that. I won't. I don't want to put myself through that. No. Yeah, that's right. We got the XFL coming up. I don't even know when that starts. I'm guessing it probably starts a week or 2 after the Super Bowl, but haven't really been following that super closely. But anyway,
no, I don't imagine I'm going to. I don't. Look, I like football as much as the next guy.
Yeah.
But my tendency to like all sports tells me once the Super Bowl is over, we're getting into the meat of the NBA season. We're about to get into March Madness, which I don't care what anybody says is still the greatest sporting event on the face of the planet. And pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting in about 2 or 3 weeks. And so I'm on all those sports. And when it's time to start talking NFL again, I'm back on board.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, because I don't follow, baseball or basketball that closely, but for me, man, they're already talking about free agency, what's going to happen in the free agent market, and the draft. You got the NFL draft coming up in like 2 months or something like that. So there's the combine, so that stuff keeps me all busy as well. So, great. Well, there's no football this weekend. So, are you going to get any house projects done or anything? Because I'm like thinking, oh, there's a couple things I've been putting off all season, and there's no football to watch this weekend, so I got to do something. I think I'm going to have to replace the toilet in one of my bathrooms, and that'll be my big project on Sunday.
I think all my housing projects are buttoned up real tight. But as you well know, I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and I'm sure she'll find something to occupy the entire weekend, and it'll be money before I know it. So,
of course, right? That's great. So. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Swami. Now, Swami's not going to join us next week on the podcast because there's no football to talk about, but he will be back after the Super Bowl. We'll talk about what happened. We'll talk about who won the NFL Playoff Challenge. We'll have some fun speculating about next season. Swami, enjoy your week off, and I'll talk to you after the Super Bowl, and hopefully we get a good one.
Yeah,
That's
man.
all I want, right? That's all anybody wants, a good football game. No blowouts. I don't want any blowouts.
Well, man, if you recall back to the Seattle-New England Super Bowl where the Marshawn Lynch no-run interception game, like I said, I've seen all the Super Bowls since Super Bowl 11. There have been some great ones. That, to me, stands out as probably the most hardcore Super Bowl game I've watched. If it's even close to that, I'm good,
I think my favorite Super Bowl has got to be the Denver Broncos versus the Green Bay Packers with John Elway at the end of his career. And I still remember that helicopter hit when he was diving into the end zone.
Yep.
That was just a brilliant game. I loved that whole game start to finish. That was probably my favorite one.
Phenomenal.
I've seen. But
phenomenal.
You just don't want a boring one. Like last year was dull. I mean, that was a dull game, man.
Last
13-3.
Last year sucked.
Oh gosh, it was bad. And then there were games that for 3 quarters were terrible, like the Atlanta New England game. That one was terrible for 3 quarters, but that fourth quarter was insane.
Well, if I'm looking back on all the Super Bowls I've watched, the Cincinnati-San Francisco Super Bowl where Esiason was the quarterback for Cincinnati that year. Yeah. The John Candy game. That was fantastic. The Giants and the Bills, the wide left or the wide right that Scott Norwood missed. That one was phenomenal.
Heartbreaker.
And you're right. I sat there watching Atlanta beat the snot out of New England for 3 quarters, and then when New England started coming back, I didn't want New England to win, but I thought surely Atlanta's not going to choke like this, and that ended up being damned entertaining too. All those ones the Denver-Green Bay one was phenomenal. All those were great.
Yeah. So everybody, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your football-free weekend, spend some time with your family, and get some chores done and some things that you've been putting off because you've been watching football. And we will talk to you next week. Like I said, I'm going to do reversion and regression players for 2020, which guys have upside and which guys have downside for next season. So thank you very much for joining me, Swami. I appreciate it, and have a great week, everybody.